Alright, all you Insomniatic TV channel surfers out there tonight, welcome back to the Tuesday Night Special. And you know, folks, we forgot to mention over this past weekend the fact that we had one of our most accurate pay-per-view predictions of all time with NXT TakeOver 30 only getting one match wrong for the pre-show, and we're probably gonna frame that on the wall somewhere. I don't know where, but we're gonna have to do that. But before we frame that accomplishment we just hit, folks, I think it's time for us to go into another edition of the As Seen on TV, and the show we have up on the plate to celebrate this late night milestone show and to wrap up this summer of RPG is none other than the classic show from Cartoon Network of Ed, and Eddy. And before anybody at home says, what does this have to do with any form of adventures? Well, in just about every single one of the episodes for Ed, and Eddy, it would have the word Ed and Venture afterwards, so we said it's the perfect way to wrap up this month. And the meat and potatoes of this said classic show, which features not only Ed, and Eddy, all spelled with their own different varieties, all trying to go throughout the neighborhood of the cul-de-sac to try to get jawbreakers by building crazy contraptions and coming up with crazy ideas to get quarters to get those said jawbreakers. And that's the best meat and potatoes that we have for this said show. And the reason why I love it so much, not only because of the cool intro for the show and the music that came along with it, but alongside with that, folks, all of the crazy contraptions that Double D would be able to make during the said show. Not only he would be able to make his own amusement park, he would be able to make a roller coaster out of household objects that can be seen from space, and was even able to make Kevin a brand new bike that apparently wasn't made for the stuff that he was doing on the said bike, which was nose wheelies and, you know, all those other crazy tricks Kevin was known to do on his bike. And on top of all of that, folks, he was even able to make a rocket, but it was a prototype, according to him during one of the episodes. And another thing that I loved about this show was, speaking of Kevin and the other characters that was featured during the show, is, yeah, the characters that was featured during the show. Not only you had Kevin, who was the cool guy who rode around on his bike all the time calling the Eds dorks, but you also had the sweet girl next door, Naz, Ralph, who magically came here from another land and decided to live here in the cul-de-sac and definitely provided his different homeworld traditions. And you even had Johnny, who had a plank as a friend. I kid you not when I say that, folks. Actually had a piece of wood as a friend who helped them out along the way. And then you had Ed's sister, Sarah, and even Jimmy, who by far is one of my favorite characters part of the show. When I ever got in a fighting game, and a little side story for why he's my favorite, folks, is because whenever I got in a fighting game against somebody online, I would always say when I get hit with a big combo, "Help, Sarah, owie!" which usually helps me win when people laugh from the other side of the mic hearing that. And besides all the characters, folks, another thing that I loved about this show had to have been the voice actors featured during this show, which would not only see Sam Vincent, who was the one who played Ed during the show, who was featured not only during Crypto the Super Dog, My Little Pony, and even Baby Looney Tunes, but you would also see Tony Sampson, who was the voice of Eddy, who was featured during not only X-Men Revolution, The Odyssey, and even during Rama's Half, that was during an animated series as well. And oh, Maestro said also during this show you also had Matt Hill, who was featured during the show, who played in not only the Street Sharks, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, Captain N and the Game Master, and was also featured during the short-lived show of Super Noobs and Super Duper Sumos. A lot of supers in his career. And And to wrap up the list of people that was featured during this show, folks, you would even have Kathleen Barr, who was mentioned in a major majority of the shows we've mentioned during the As Seen on TV series, besides being Dot Matrix in Reboot, also featured as Wheezy the Dragon in Dragon Tales, and was also featured during the hit series The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, Liberty Kids, and even during the holiday special of Grandma Got Ran Over by a Reindeer, and even featured during a show we will mention in the near future known as Johnny Test. And even though the maestros give me that sign to stop mentioning people, we do have to mention a couple other people who were featured during shows as well, including David Paul Grove, who was featured during not only the Santa Claus Once Upon a Time, and also during the show Supernatural, but you also had Tabitha St. Germain, who was featured during the Casper's Haunted Christmas, the animated series version of The Legend of Zelda, which I do believe was a movie, and also featured during George of the Jungle and Beetlejuice, and the Super Mario Bros. Super Show. Now, one of the coolest things I know about this show, besides all the stuff we told you prior, folks, is that the creator, Danny Antonucci, who was able to create this show on a dare, and was able to get it released on Cartoon Network as of January 4th of 1999, for the show to meet its untimely end on November 8th of 2009, with this show lasting well over 11 years. At its current time, this would be considered as one of the longest running shows in Cartoon Network's history, and at the same time would be able to tie 9th place for the longest running American animated series, with not only Blue's Clues, but also the Wonder Pets, and of course Mickey Mouse Clubhouse as well. Nice! And to this day, one of my favorite episodes for this show would have to be the day where Eddy pulled a prank on Ed for him to believe that he was turned into a cockroach, for Ralph to get involved and actually hit Eddy with his shoe as hard as he possibly can, by also screaming out at the top of his lungs, "Quickly, before it lays eggs!" Still funny to me to this very day, folks. And the fact that we don't review shows along the lines of TV Guide or any of those other famous TV reviewers that you know of out there, we say this: if you guys want to go ahead and watch a show that features 3 kids teaming up together to form a group that tries to plot against the neighborhood kids to get money out of them, to buy jawbreakers, to have a sweet afternoon, only for each and every single one of their plots to go belly up and backfire in their faces, for a misadventure that they'll most likely tell their kids in the near future if they ever have them, then I recommend you go out there, pick up your TV channel remotes, and watch that show. That, according to the maestro, still does come on Cartoon Network sparingly, and also comes on Boomerang, and is also featured on YouTube. So you have a lot of sources and choices to go with for this said cartoon, which is awesome. And I guess with that said, folks, we might as well head back into this music once again, and when we return, we'll be back with more of that streetlight delight as the Tuesday Night Special rolls on right after this. So don't go watching those reruns just yet, folks, and stay tuned.